British singer-songwriter Corinne Bailey Rae is renowned for her warm, touching voice. She dazzled the music world right from her debut with the song Like a Star, and then became the fourth female British singer to have her first full-length album debut at #1. However, the musician experienced a tragic loss while producing the second album and suspended all her activities for 2 years. But she managed to channel her emotions into music as part of the grieving process. Now, Corinne Bailey Rae is back with a third full-length album after a break of 6 years. Now she's consoling the whole world with her new music. Let's take a glimpse at her new life and artistry on this edition of the Innerview.
Hello and welcome to the Innerview. I'm your host, Park Sung-hee. Autumn in Korea is a romantic and magnificent season with all the beautiful autumn leaves. In time for the fall, we've invited someone to touch your soul. We have British singer-songwriter Corinne Bailey Rae joining us. Hi Corinne, welcome to our show.
Thank you.
We have viewers around the world watching. Would you like to say hello to them first?
Yes, thank you for tuning in, and I'm really looking forward to talking to you.
They must be very excited to see you on our show.
Oh, I hope so.
I only saw you on music videos, and you look beautiful there. And you're even more beautiful in real life.
Oh, that's very kind.
You hear that a lot, don't you?
No, not at all.
Not really?
Nice to hear that, thank you.
And it's been 5 years since your last concert in Korea, and you're briefly here in Seoul for the Seoul Jazz Festival. And how do you feel being back here again?
It's really nice to be back, actually. When I played at the Jazz Festival earlier this year, I just felt really at home. It's amazing to be in Korea where jazz is really supported and enjoyed by lots of young people. So it was great to be at the festival. You know, lots of people were saying, I grew up with your music, or I used to listen to your music at school. I used to listen to it with my parents. Now I'm an adult. So it was really nice to see all those people and to connect with them. And then, you know, we got to also perform at the Olympic Hall, which was really magical.
Right. They couldn't get more of you for the summer, so it's a good opportunity for them to see the whole concert. Right?
It was really nice to be invited back.
Well, musicians like yourself, you just said that you flew from Shanghai, and the musicians travel all over the world on concert tours. I'm sure it's worth it because it will bring you a lot of joys and rewarding moments. I'm just wondering what it's like to be in a different place and performing in front of different audience in different culture. And could you tell us about that?
It's really interesting. I think I feel like a traveling person. You know, you have your suitcases and they have all the things you need for. I've been away now for about 7 or 8 weeks. So I have, you know, all my clothes and toiletries and all my books and, you know, postcards and things that I like to have around me. But I think when you go to different countries, all of them are very different. You know, the food, the etiquette is different. I think, you know, if you're lucky and you have a good team like I do, then people sort of help you through. But there are different ways of being in different countries, and I think you pick up on how other people are behaving, and you try to copy that and not do the wrong thing or say the wrong thing, I guess.
So it could be a learning experience to you, right?
Yeah, it's a really good chance to learn. I mean, I always try and learn a few phrases. I don't have many Korean phrases, but except for 감성으로. But it's nice to be able to try culture and food from other places. Last time I was here, it was the Buddha's birthday.
Oh,
and we were able to go there and experience the peace of that temple and see all the lanterns. Yeah, there was thousands of lanterns and incense and chanting. And so that felt very different, but also very familiar and comforting to be around.
Well, you have a very solid fan base over the world, and Korea is not an exception. Are you aware that you have a big fan in Korea?
I guess I wouldn't have known it, and then it's only when I get to come here and I'll be walking down the street and see people like, that's her, you know, it's something you just don't expect and you don't know. And if you're from far away, you know, getting to play in front of audiences that live, you know, thousands of miles away from you, but that know your songs, that clap along, that sing along, it's very touching and it makes me feel very at home. So yeah, I feel honoured that I have fans here in Korea.
Would there be any aspects of your song that captivates younger Koreans, especially, do you think?
I guess I feel like with my first album, you know, I was a young person and I wanted to write something that was really honest, you know. I felt like that record was an example of, you know, who I am. So it was, you know, I'm in love, but I'm in love with someone who I argue with all the time, but I can't live without them. And it was getting to know my family. I sang a song about my mother in Butterfly and about the place where I live in Leeds and about the music that I've grown up around. And I felt like it was a really open-hearted record, and I feel that makes it easy for people to get to know me. And I'm glad that I've made music in that way.
So at the recent concert in Korea, you performed new songs from your new album, which was released this year. And it was first album in 6 years.
Yeah.
Right? And what took you so long?
It's a good question. I think a lot of the things I was doing were trying things out and experimenting. After The Sea came out in 2010, I did a large tour with that. I went to lots of places I'd never been before. Argentina and Brazil and Indonesia.
Wow.
I love touring and it was really important for me to just branch out and find lots of places where I can be. You know, I find it to be such an adventure getting to go to lots of places. So I toured a lot with the record. I put out an EP of covers. It was called the Love EP, all different love songs. And I won a Grammy for Best R&B Vocal for this song called Is This Love, this great Bob Marley song. So I felt like I just enjoyed that record and toured it for a long time. And then after that, I made my own studio in Leeds, and that took us some time. You know, I wrote the songs, I produced the record, and you know, I'm really just learning to be a producer, even though I've worked on all 3 of my albums. And those experimenting stages took a long time. And then we moved to Los Angeles to work on it some more with different musicians. So I've written a lot of songs in this time. Some of them are on this album, but others are side projects and ideas for films. And so yeah, a lot of work has come out of this last few years, and this album is just one part of it.
Right. You certainly did a lot of things for the past 6 years, right?
That's true.
Well, because as a singer-songwriter, you put your soul and heart into your music and your album. And you must be very curious about how people will like your music.
Yeah, that's true.
And how did the Korean audience receive it during your performance?
Oh, it went really well, actually. It was amazing. There was a really magical moment at the end of the concert. We played lots of new songs, and I was happy to see that people were moving around in the chairs, people were singing along to songs.
I'm sure they did.
People were clapping. There's one song I have called Green Aphrodisiac, where I invite the audience to sing at the end, and straight away everyone was there. So it was very nice. I felt that they responded really well to the new songs. And then at the end of the concert, we played Like a Star. And I noticed, it was in the Olympic Hall, it's a huge room, and I noticed just 2 points of light in the corner. You know, people had put on their torches on the phone and were moving them around. So I noticed 2 here and then 2 there. And then slowly through the course of the song, the audience just lit up. You know, it was pitch black, and suddenly I could see all these lights. It was like looking at stars. It was very moving to see the way that, you know, all these people could see me on stage, but when they lit up, I could see them as well. I could see them as just a single point of light. So, yeah, that was a really nice way to end the concert.
Do you know that you are a wannabe figure and role model in Korea? And a lot of Korean singer-songwriters, they look up to you and your artistry.
Oh, that's nice.
You know Korean singer IU,
I
right?
do. She came to our show at Olympic Hall, and she is just so lovely. Every time I see her, I always just feel so warm. She is really kind, she's really open, and you know, we had a very nice time together at the show, and yeah, she's a great talent as well, very great talent.
Right. I just imagined how wonderful it would be to be someone else's role model. And so before we take a real interview of your life in music, let's take a short break here and take a glimpse at your recent concert.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage, Corinne Bailey Rae!
How you doing, so good to see you, thank you so much for coming out. Where's the spot there, like the galaxy?
Corinne Bailey Rae held a concert in Korea on October 18th at Olympic Hall in Seoul, dazzling her Korean fans with a mellow and breezy voice. The concert started with the song Been to the Moon from her third album, The Heart Speaks in Whispers. Up next is Breathless from her first album, Corinne Bailey Rae. This sweet song is about a girl who can't confess her feelings to her loved one. With her ever so seasoned musicality, Corinne Bailey Rae decorated a beautiful night in Seoul, making us look forward to every one of her future moves.
코린 베일리라는 한국에서 볼 수 없는 독보적인 보이스와 그 매력적인 그 보이스 때문에 제가 중학교 때부터 정말 열성적인 팬이 되었습니다.
얼굴도 귀여우면서 약간 섹시한 면도 있어서 좋고요. 그리고 음악을 되게 좋아하는데 2005년도에 발매했을 때부터 되게 많이 들었어요. 그때가 20살이었거든요. 그 10년 됐거든요. 음악을 들은 지 질리지도 않고.
For me, I like singers who write organically and what they truly feel honestly. So because Corinne Bailey Rae really puts herself into her lyrics, I really like her.
여기까지 와서 해줘서 너무 고맙고 다음에 또 왔으면 좋겠습니다.
Corinne, we love you!
Now, shall we talk about your early years? When did you start singing, and when did you realize that you had this smooth and soulful voice that could touch so many people's heart?
Well, I started singing when I was really young. I always loved singing at school, and I used to sing around the house, and I used to sing with friends, and I used to sing at church, but I always felt that my voice was different, and I never felt that I had a good voice. I think at school, all the choirs were almost like musical theatre voices, you know, really big, really powerful, very clear. And I always felt like I had a lot of texture to my voice. You know, I loved singers like Mariah Carey and Whitney Houston, but they were so polished and they had all these amazing runs. And I used to think, oh, I wish that I could sing. I wish I didn't have a voice that sounded like this. And it was really a revelation getting to hear two specific singers for me. One was Kurt Cobain from Nirvana, and one was Billie Holiday. And I got to kind of hear both of those singers around the same time, you know, when I was sort of 12 and 13. And that was a really new experience for me, you know, in Kurt Cobain, hearing someone who could sing in this conversational style, but it was very raw, and it was very gravelly, and it wasn't contrived. It just felt very natural. It was like what he had to say just came out. And similarly with Billie Holiday, you know, I felt like she was almost talking
to you.
Yeah, she was talking to you, or she was telling you the song. It wasn't about all the gymnastics or having a smooth voice. She had this careworn voice, and that really spoke to me. And those two people made me feel like I could do this.
You
know,
could do that.
that there could be this space for a type of voice like mine. And around the same time I started writing songs, because I felt, you know, if I was going to make my own sound, then I would have to do it in my own way, you know, singing my style and sing what came to me. So it was really great to hear those two singers. You know, it freed me into being a singer.
Yeah, but I heard that you started out as a indie rock band.
Yeah, that's right.
Called Helen.
Yeah, that's right. We had a band called Helen. I guess, you know, in response to bands like Nirvana, there were lots and lots of British young people who took up the guitar. And, you know, my sister used to play classical guitar at school, and one day I just took her guitar and started to learn it and started to practice, you know, watch TV and see what the other artists were doing. And that was really, really important, you know, a good start for me in music. But I loved indie, you know, I loved the fact that it's really simple. You only need to know 3 chords and you can go off and write, you know, endless amounts of songs. And that's what I did. And I loved the aggression of that music as well.
And then you made your debut in 2005 with the song Like a Star.
Yeah.
And you really became a star with this song. There was a huge hit, and it swept all the music charts in all over the world. And it was featured in so many soundtracks and TV series and films. And it really, that song pulled you into immediate limelight. And you were only 26 then.
Yeah, I think
right?
I was 26 when it came out. But I wrote the song a long time before that. I wrote the song when I was in my band Helen. So we used to perform it in the band. And that song was a song, I guess, that got people interested in me. You know, our band got a manager, and he played the song to a publisher, and they said, you know, who's this singer? What's this voice? What is this song? So the song kind of opened up the whole world for me, you know. And I remember where I was when I wrote it, and how it just felt like it poured out. And yeah, I'm so grateful to that song. Every night I love performing it.
But how did you handle all the fame and success?
I think because I was, like you say, I was 26, so in a way that's a bit older than most people probably, starting out in music. And I'd already played music for a long time. I started that band when I was 15. So I think I've been sort of trying to, you know, get into music for a long time. A lot of my friends were musicians who had tried and not become well known and not become successful. So I think I was very grateful to be successful, but I also knew that a lot of these things happen by accident. You know, it's not just your skill, it's sometimes just being in the right place at the right time. And so I just think I enjoyed it. And, you know, we had loads of mad times flying on a private jet to be on Oprah Winfrey and performing at the Grammys and being introduced by Stevie Wonder. And it was just, it was fun. It kind of seemed weirdly normal because I had these nice people around me, all my friends, and it was playing music, which is something I'd done for a long time. It just meant there was more people in the audience.
Right. Now your follow-up single, the year after, the Put Your Record On. I love this song.
Oh, thank you.
And this is another great success.
Thank you.
And it not only gave you the artistic success, but commercial success as well, I believe. And then something happened in your life. And how did you turn that into your musical material? How did you overcome your experience and then integrate into your musicality?
That's a good question. I think, you know, I had all this success with the record, and that was really incredible. And, you know, at the time, my husband was performing with me. He played the saxophone, so we toured all over the world in this band. And just when we finished our tour, he went on tour with Mark Ronson. So he had all this great achievement, and it was a very positive time in our lives. And then, you know, he passed away really unexpectedly. And I guess at that time it just felt like it was kind of the end of... At the time it felt like it was the end of my life. And now, of course, I say it's the end of that chapter. But in terms of how it affected my music, I mean, I think it just affected my life in such a huge way. Every single day was different from me, from waking up on my own to every single thing that I did, you know. And I think for a long time I didn't make any music. And then when I started to make music again, I felt like it was a way of getting out my feelings and being able to explore them. led to this record called The Sea, which I put out in 2010,
right.
which had been written sort of either side of this experience, but in the way the experience kind of coloured all the songs. So some of the songs I'd written about sad experiences that belonged to other people, but suddenly they felt like they were reflecting on my own experiences. So I think that just going through that grief, you know, it changed my life in so many ways, and it changed my music because it opened up a whole range of emotions. You know, it sort of widened the spectrum
right.
of my experience and emotions. You know, so yeah, it was. And you know, the way it affected my music was very small, almost compared to the way it affected the rest of my life.
Right. Well, you answered the part of the questions that my next one, because I was going to ask you that you channeled your grief through your second album, The Sea. Could you add a little more about the songs and the second album?
Yeah, of course. One of my favourite songs on that record is a song called I Would Like to Call It Beauty. You know, I had, you know, I was very close to our family, our in-laws, you know, Jason's family, and I was having a conversation with his brother once on the phone. We were talking about God, you know, his family are very religious, and I said, you know, what do you think about God or religion or spirituality? And he said, well, the only way I can describe it is this, you know, it's this almost this force, this substance that goes through the universe that's around us. And he said, I would like to call it beauty. And he sort of said beauty, and it went up with this questioning intonation. But you know, that was such a profound statement to me, that someone who had lost their brother very recently was talking about a force that holds everything together, and that force was called beauty. You know, and he's a visual artist, so you know, that's how he sort of interprets the world. I just thought, that's a really incredible statement. So straight away it made me think of a song. You know, one of the lines says, I lay face upturned on the palm of God. And I really liked that image. It was just something that I felt like I saw in my mind.
Just sitting here and listening to you, I realized that every moment of our life and every emotion we feel can turn into great music. And I think it's no wonder why people find such a healing power in your songs.
Oh, thank you.
Right, so now you're back, returned to the fans after 6 years of break. So let's talk about your recent activities after this short clip.
Just like a star across my sky, just like an angel off the page, you have appeared to my life. Feel like I'll never be the same. Just like a song in my heart, just like oil on my hands. Girl, put your record on, tell me your favorite song. You go ahead, let your head down. Sapphire and faded jeans, I hope you get your dreams. Just go ahead, let your head down, yeah. And do it all again. 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 You try sometimes, but it won't stop. You got my heart in a headlock. Stop where you are, under fading stars. This is the world we made. There is no better place. It's true. Light the fire where you are. Can't stop the wild wind roaring. You can't stop my pulse from calling out. Light the fire where you are.
Your third full-length album was released after 6 years of break, and it has a very poetic title. the heart speaks in whispers. What did you want to convey with that title?
It's funny because the title came about really naturally. I was just singing a song, and it's a line from one of the songs. The song is called The Skies Will Break. And it says, the skies will break for you, the waves will part for you, the seas will rend. It's all about transformation. It's all about finding hope again after hopelessness. And this line just came out in the song where I said, the heart speaks in whispers, you've got to listen. And I love the idea of that our heart is speaking to us all the time. It's ourselves, it's our personality, it's our intuition and our instinct, you know, our dreams, our subconscious, you know, how we feel in our bodies, how we respond to nature. All of that is in there all the time, helping us, guiding us, encouraging us, supporting us, but that it's a quiet voice, and that we have to quieten down all the things around us in order to hear it. And that was my experience making this record, that it came to me in these dreams and fragments and small moments, but I had to really slow everything down to hear it. And that just became something that I did more and more in my life, just start to tune in to that voice.
Yeah, you have to keep quiet to listen.
Yeah,
right?
it's true.
Right. Music critics, they say that about your third album, there's a notable shift from the previous ones. It's not just a dulcet ballad, but it has Latin American rhythms, and it has a splash of California sunshine, probably because it's recorded in Los Angeles.
That's right, yeah.
So I would like to ask you, is it all that different from your previous albums?
I think it's different in some ways and familiar in other ways. You know, I heard a very famous songwriter, Paul Weller, who's a brilliant artist and was in the Jam and is an amazing writer. I worked with him for a few days, and he just said, you know, just do something different, do something that you wouldn't think of as being yourself, because it always sounds like you. You know, you always have your own voice and vocal cords and way of expressing yourself, and that's how I felt on this record. I thought, I'm going to do it in a different way. I want to do something that's energetic, that's vibrant, that's noisy. I wanted to do something that reflected my new life, you know, having adventures, traveling around the world, meeting new people, falling in love, moving to Los Angeles, meeting all these cool people in electronic and soul music in LA, and learning from them about being more bold and more independent. And so the record, in a way, is exactly what I would now see from my experiences before. You know, it is moving from darkness to light. It is moving from bitterness to sweetness. It does encapsulate a sort of newfound joy that I feel. So it makes a lot of sense, and yeah, I guess it's up for people who like my music to see how different it really is. But yeah, I think that the core feel is still there, and that it's songs, you know, performed by me, written by me, produced by me, and so there's obviously a lot of my own fingerprints in the music.
So you said in an interview that this new album captures my life, is what you said.
Yeah.
I can understand why you said that.
Yeah, it really does. It's like, you know, people say it's a record, and, you know, that is a kind of a snapshot of what's happening at any particular time in your life. And so, you know, in a year or 2 years or whatever, you know, I'd like to do another record, and that'll be completely different because, you know, your life is constantly changing. Yeah.
It's a reflection of your life, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And then another thing happened during those years. You found your new life companion.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, well, Steve and I got married a few years ago, but we're really old friends. We've known each other a long time, and we also have worked together a really long time. So we worked together on Seasons Change on my first album, and he was the main producer for the whole of The Sea, the record The Sea. So he and I have been kind of musical collaborators a really long time. So we have that understanding, and we also, you know each other's families really well. We became really good friends, you know, a few years ago, and it's sometimes, I guess, funny and unexpected when a friendship can turn into something
love,
else.
right.
Yeah. And I've never experienced that before. You know, I've always had it be an instant sort of moment with someone, but this was really special, you know, to be able to see someone, and then it's almost like one day you see them in a completely different light. So yeah, that has definitely brought even more joy to my life.
You look pretty happy talking about it. I always wanted to ask this question to a big star. Actually. You work closely with the labels, and you are surrounded with people who would like to portray you in a certain way. And how do you keep your image?
That's interesting. I think it goes back to this idea of, you know, listening to your inner voice. I think that all of our instincts are really strong. You know, I think that a lot of the times we have good intuition. We know what decisions are right for ourselves. And I think it's really hard in these times. You know, we go to school and we're taught a certain logic, and we're taught to be rational, and we're also surrounded by adverts all the time telling us, you know, what to wear, what to think, what to do, how we'll be happy, how our families should look, how our homes should look, you know, what we should aspire to. So much of, you know, television and advertising is like that. And I think that we all have such interesting, you know, individual personalities, and I think I have a strong sense of what I feel and how I want to come across, and or maybe a strong aversion to the things I don't like. So I just follow that all the time, you know, as people say, do you want to wear this? Yes or no? Or do you want to work with this artist or this producer, or go to this concert, or move in this direction? I feel like all the time you're just sensing it out, and luckily, you know, I feel like it's quite clear straight away what decisions are things that would suit me.
Right. It's interesting because your answer just leads to my next question. Your music portrays the idea of listening to the heart, the voices of the heart. But you know, it's very hard to listen to the voices of the heart because of all the ups and downs in everyday life. And how do you listen to your heart and use its power?
I think that a really important thing is to have time on your own and time away from screens, phones, all of that stuff which is such a distraction. You know, I think that sometimes you really get to hear your own voice almost when you're bored, you know, you've got nothing to do. Have you ever been on a long train journey where you realise you didn't bring a book, or your phone's out of batteries, or you haven't got your music, and you're just kind of, you know, sitting around? I feel like yourself can, you know, you can entertain yourself, and I feel like that's sometimes when I get the strongest kind of voices or sounds. You know, sometimes that's when I write songs or hear music, or get an idea of something I want to change in my life, or something I want to do. So I think that all of us need some kind of activity like that puts us exactly where we are in our lives. You know, I have this song on the record called Stop Where You Are.
Stop where you are.
And it's all about being in the present moment. And, you know, that's so important, because I think if we're always caught up in the future and what's next, we're actually never getting to experience our lives. You know, all we have is this exact thing, me and you talking right here. This is, in this moment, this is our lives, and we don't know what's going to happen next. And I think it's really important to be present. I think it makes time stretch out. It makes a day longer when you are actually there, instead of just like liking things on Instagram, which I also like to do. But you know, it's good when you can actually be here.
I'm sure that's when you can hear your heart speaks in whispers.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Well, as a renowned singer-songwriter, where do you draw your inspiration from?
I love writing songs, and I've always really enjoyed writing songs, even from when I was young. And I feel like they just come in, you know, they just sort of come in when I'm not really expecting it. You know, it might be when I'm distracted by just living, but they sort of just come in, and it will be, you know, looking out the window and I see something and I want to describe it, or I have an experience and I want to be able to put it into something that I can keep and something that I can communicate. So my inspiration just comes from, you know, every single
Everywhere.
day. Someone you meet when you're walking down the street, a story someone tells you, an art gallery you go to, a film you watch, a dream you had. A lot of this record came through actual, you know, dreams and images as well.
I know you are on the playlist of the President Obama.
Yeah, that's right.
Right.
Yeah.
Who are on your playlist? Who
Who's
do you
on
listen
my playlist? Lots of different artists, actually. I'm just getting more into jazz for the first time. You know, I used to work in a jazz and soul club and loved Billie Holiday, but, you know, music that's more instrumental with these complicated changes like Herbie Hancock or John Coltrane, you know, they're artists that I'm kind of newly discovering. So lots of people doing new things and different things.
Do you have any role model or any musician who had influenced you
I
in a lot
guess
of ways?
there's a lot of musicians I really look up to. You know, Nina Simone is a very powerful sort of, you know, totem in my life of someone who has survived and is powerful and vulnerable and sort of failed and flawed and magnificent. You know, I love her. I love Patti Smith and her, especially her lyric writing. You know, she's a very poetic writer. I saw her perform and she's wild. You know, her hair is wild and she spins around. She spits on the stage. You know, she's a proper punk.
Really?
I like to see that spirit. You know, so they're really important artists for me, Patti Smith and Nina Simone.
I know you're very much interested in inspiring youngsters, especially the young girls, encouraging young girls. And what words of advice would you give them, or to those aspiring musicians who'd like to follow into your footsteps?
I think the only advice I could give anyone is the same things that I am learning and the same things that are in my songs all the time. You know, I think it's really important for us to understand that we are individual people with power. You know, our opinions are important. We have political power, we have economic power, you know, we have our own individual voices. And I think as culture gets more and more sort of homogenized and globalized, I think there's more and more pressure on the self to kind of fit in with our, you know, a few selected kind of types that advertisers have made up. But really so much joy and freedom is in life when you just accept, you know, this is me, this is what I look like, and I'm the only one in the world who is me. And I think that's the most important thing for young people to realise, that they are completely unique and powerful, and that their ideas are the ideas that are going to shape the world. And none of the ideas are too different or strange or fanciful or ludicrous. And I think they are very valuable people that should be listened to. You know, you get to them before they've been brainwashed into feeling like they have to conform. So know your own power. Yeah, right? Definitely. Right. For young people. And then for musicians, the same thing, you know. Don't sit at home, listen to the radio, think, oh, well, I can't be a musician because I don't sound like this or this or this person. But, you know, you have your own style, your own voice, and that needs to be heard. So, yeah, I'm always excited to see what's new and different and weird. Well, this is my last and the official question for the interview. What is your ultimate goal or dream as a musician? Wow, that's a really good question. Well, I guess I've got a few different dreams. One of my dreams is just to make a lot of work. Like, I feel like I want to make lots of songs and lots of albums, and I want to be able to really explore, you know, explore all the different styles of music that I enjoy, and all the different contexts. You know, I'd love to write more for film. I'd love to write more for television. I'd love to write more with other artists. I'd like to be a better singer. I'd like to be a better songwriter. I'd like to be a better producer. Really? I'd like there to be less of a gap between my imagination and what actually ends up getting made as the real thing. So, yeah, closing that gap. Closing the gap. Yeah. It's already time for us to wrap up the interview. And I must say that you are a beautiful person. Oh, thank you. Both on the inside and out. And it's no wonder why people say that your music is so beautiful and touching. Oh, thank you. Thanks so much for being with us today. 감사합니다. 감사합니다. Thank you.